Ladies and gentlemen, there's a truth we often overlook. The most powerful people in the room are not the ones who speak the loudest. They're the ones who don't need to. Respect isn't earned through noise, arguments, or explanations. It's earned in the moments when you stay calm, stay grounded, and choose silence over reaction. If you've ever wondered why some people command respect without saying a word, you're about to understand the strength they've mastered, and how you can use it to change the way the world sees you. Respect doesn't come from the noise we make, it comes from the silence we choose to master. There is a kind of power in silence that most people never learn to use. Silence is where character is tested, patience is proven, and leadership is revealed. Anyone can speak loudly. Anyone can argue, defend, and react, but silence requires restraint. It requires emotional intelligence. It requires the confidence to know that you don't need to prove yourself in every moment to be worthy of respect. There is a deep misunderstanding in the world today. People believe that respect comes from making others hear them, agree with them, or validate them. But respect doesn't grow from attention. It grows from consistency. Silence is not an absence of expression. Silence is the presence of discipline. It's the pause between impulse and action where wisdom is born. When you choose silence over reaction, you show that you are driven not by emotion, but by intention. And people respect those who respond with intention. In silence, you discover what truly matters. You begin to see that your value is not measured by how quickly you can reply, but how deeply you can understand. You start noticing the difference between noise and truth. You learn to separate what deserves your energy from what only distracts you. Silence is the space where you regain clarity before stepping back into a world that constantly tries to pull you into chaos. And while the world may not always reward this self-control, people notice it more than they admit. Respect, at its core, is built on trust, and silence is one of the most powerful signals of trustworthiness. When someone sees you listening more than you speak, they feel seen. When someone sees you think before you respond, they feel valued. When someone sees you stay calm in moments of pressure, they feel safe. Silence communicates something that words often fail to express, a sense of stability. It tells the world that you are anchored, centered, and not easily shaken. That is why people respect the calm, not the loud. Silence also reveals the truth about confidence. The most confident people in any room are not the ones trying to dominate the conversation. They're the ones who don't feel the need to. Their presence speaks louder than any argument they could make. Their stillness makes people lean in, wanting to understand them more. When you walk through life with a quiet certainty, you naturally command respect, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. There will be times when silence is your greatest strength, when someone misunderstands you, when someone underestimates you, when someone tries to provoke you. In those moments, silence becomes a declaration that you won't bend to the expectations of others. You won't lose yourself to impulse. You won't give anyone the power to control your emotional state. Silence is the courage to stand tall without shouting, to stay grounded without forcing your point, to remain true to who you are even when you feel pressured to defend it. As you grow, you'll realize that silence is not passive. It is proactive. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's not avoidance, it's strategy. It allows you to rise above conflict instead of drowning in it. It gives you the mental space to see situations clearly. It helps you stay aligned with your values instead of reacting out of fear or frustration. And in a world full of noise, the one who can remain silent holds an undeniable advantage. Respect doesn't come from how loudly you demand it. It comes from the quiet moments where you prove, through your actions, your discipline, and your presence, that you are someone worth respecting. And when you begin to understand the strength hidden within silence, you start to see how it shapes the way others perceive you. People watch how you handle pressure. They watch how you react when things don't go your way. They watch how you behave when someone challenges you or misunderstands you. And in those moments, silence becomes a mirror. reflecting the depth of your character far more clearly than any words could. Silence shows that you are not controlled by ego, anger, or insecurity. It reveals that you can absorb the moment, process it, and still choose who you want to be. Silence also teaches you patience, and patience is one of the rarest forms of strength. It's easy to speak too soon. It's easy to respond without thinking. It's easy to let emotion take over. But the person who masters silence masters timing. And timing is everything when it comes to making decisions that lead to long-term respect. It gives you the ability to step back, observe the bigger picture, and understand what truly requires your voice and what simply doesn't deserve it. This is how leaders rise, not through endless talking, but through thoughtful action shaped in quiet internal moments. There is a quiet discipline that grows inside you when you embrace silence. You become more aware of your thoughts, more intentional with your energy, and more selective about what you allow into your life. You learn that not every opinion needs your response, not every conflict needs your presence, not every comment needs your attention. Silence becomes a filter that separates what strengthens you from what drains you. And those who live with this kind of clarity naturally earn respect because they don't waste themselves on meaningless battles. You also begin to understand that silence is not about shutting the world out, it's about hearing it more clearly. When you speak less, you listen more deeply. You notice the tone behind someone's words, the emotion behind their frustration, the hesitation behind their questions. You begin to understand people on a level most never reach, and the ability to listen, to genuinely listen, is one of the most respected traits a person can have. People trust those who make them feel understood. People follow those who make them feel heard. People respect those who don't speak over them but stand with them. Silence strengthens your emotional intelligence. It teaches you how to pause before reacting, how to regulate your feelings before they spill out, and how to turn moments of tension into opportunities for clarity rather than chaos. When you allow yourself the space to breathe before responding, you gain control over your narrative. You send a message that you are not ruled by circumstances, you are guided by purpose, and people respect a purpose-driven person far more than a reactive one. There is also a powerful message carried within silence, the message that you don't need validation to know your worth. When you choose silence in moments where others expect you to justify yourself, defend yourself, or explain yourself, you send a signal that your confidence comes from within. Respect grows when people see that you stand firm in who you are without needing approval from anyone. Silence becomes a declaration of inner strength, an unspoken reminder that your identity is not up for negotiation. In silence, you also uncover a deeper understanding of your own values. You gain the ability to distinguish between the battles that matter and the ones that only distract you from progress. You stop giving your attention to negativity, gossip, or criticism designed to pull you down. Instead, you save your voice for conversations that uplift, inspire, or move you forward. You conserve your energy for growth rather than conflict. And this selective use of energy makes you someone others learn from. Someone whose presence alone demands respect because it reflects clarity, intention, and maturity. There is a quiet confidence in those who understand that their actions will speak louder than anything they could say. They don't rush to prove themselves because they trust that their consistency will do it for them. They don't get lost in arguments because they know their results will settle the debate. They don't waste energy explaining their dreams because their dedication will reveal their direction. When you live this way, respect becomes a natural byproduct. People begin to see you not just as someone who has potential, but as someone who embodies discipline, restraint, and focus. And eventually, others start to mirror the way you carry yourself. They begin lowering their voices when you enter the room, not out of fear, but out of recognition. They sense your calmness and rise to match the level of maturity you bring. They feel your self-control and treat you with a different level of consideration. Silence has a way of elevating you not by force, but by presence. It sets a tone, creates an atmosphere, and establishes a standard. And those who can maintain this standard find that silence becomes one of the greatest sources of respect they will ever possess. And as you continue to grow into this quiet strength, you begin to realize that silence is not merely a skill, it becomes a way of living. It shapes the way you carry yourself through conversations, challenges, and opportunities. It becomes part of your identity, an inner anchor that steadies you even when the world around you begins to shake. You start to move with more intention. You begin to speak only when your words add value. And you notice that people respond to this shift with a different kind of attention, one rooted in admiration rather than expectation. Silence teaches you that you don't always need to match the energy of the room. You don't need to shout just because others are shouting, or rush just because others are rushing. When you stay quiet, you gain the power to choose your own rhythm. You create space to think, to reflect, and to consider the deeper meaning behind situations that most people skim over. This deliberate pace doesn't slow you down. It actually elevates your ability to make thoughtful choices. And thoughtful choices lead you toward the kind of life others respect not only for its results, but for the discipline behind them. You begin to understand that silence is a form of strength that speaks directly to your character. It shows that you trust yourself enough to pause. It shows that you believe in your ability to handle what comes next without rushing into a decision. It shows that your confidence isn't rooted in proving anything, it's rooted in knowing who you are. And when people see that, they naturally begin to treat you with more care, more attention, and more respect. There will be moments when silence feels uncomfortable, especially when you are surrounded by people who equate noise with significance. They may try to pull you into chaos, expecting you to react the way they do, but silence gives you the ability to break that pattern. It gives you the strength to step out of the noise and stay grounded. This calmness sets you apart. It tells others that you won't be controlled by urgency, drama, or pressure. You maintain your standard, and in doing so, you shape the way people approach you. Silence also creates room for clarity. In quiet moments, your mind settles, and the fog starts to fade. You begin to see what truly matters, your values, your goals, your priorities. And with clarity comes conviction. You no longer need to justify your decisions because you know they come from a place of intention. This clarity becomes your guide, helping you navigate difficult situations with wisdom instead of emotion. People respect those who act with clarity because clarity shows discipline, and discipline shows strength. More importantly, silence allows you to observe the world in a way that others don't. You see patterns in people's behavior. You notice what motivates them, what frustrates them, what inspires them. You understand more about their fears than they realize. This kind of insight can only come from a mind that takes time to reflect rather than react. And when you carry that understanding into your interactions, people feel valued not because you speak a lot, but because you understand deeply. When you adopt silence as part of your character, you become someone others trust in the moments that matter. They know you won't speak carelessly. They know you won't react without thinking. They know you won't escalate a situation unnecessarily. They know your words carry weight because they are chosen, not scattered. This reliability shifts the way people view you. You become someone they seek out for advice, for perspective, or even just for your presence. Respect naturally follows those who bring calm in a world full of noise. Silence also teaches you the art of emotional control. You learn to recognize your feelings without being ruled by them. You understand when to step back, when to breathe, and when to let things pass without letting them shape your mood. Emotional control is one of the most powerful characteristics a person can possess, and those who master it are respected not just for what they do, but for how they carry themselves through adversity. When people see that you remain steady even in chaos, they begin to trust your leadership, whether you're leading a team, a conversation, or your own life. As silence becomes part of your strength, you also learn that it isn't about suppressing your voice. It's about elevating it. It's about reserving your words for moments where they make an impact. It's about speaking from a place of clarity rather than impulse. And when you finally decide to speak, your voice carries a different kind of power, not because it's loud, but because it's earned. People listen more closely, they take your words seriously, they respect the intention behind each sentence. Over time, silence transforms the way you move through the world. You begin to realize that respect doesn't come from demanding it, arguing for it, or forcing it. It comes from the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth and doesn't need to prove it. It comes from the discipline of staying calm when others lose control. It comes from the strength of thinking deeply before acting. Silence becomes the invisible force that shapes your presence, establishes your value, and earns you the respect that words alone could never create. And the more you embrace this quiet strength, the more you notice how silence shapes the way people respond to you. It becomes a kind of presence steady, grounded, unmistakable. When you walk into a room carrying silence with confidence rather than discomfort, people feel it. They sense that you're not seeking approval or attention. You're not trying to dominate the space. You're simply there, aware, composed, and fully in control of yourself. That alone earns you a kind of respect that loud voices can never command. Silence sharpens your ability to read situations before acting. You begin to pick up on the smallest details, the shifts in tone, the hesitation in someone's voice, the tension in the air that others miss because they're too busy reacting. This awareness becomes one of your greatest assets. It helps you navigate conversations with intention. It helps you speak at the right moment instead of the first moment. It helps you understand what people truly mean, not just what they say. Respect grows naturally for those who carry this kind of perceptiveness, because it reveals a depth of character that few people ever master. There is also a quiet discipline that silence breathes into your daily life. It changes the way you approach challenges. Instead of rushing into solutions, you step back and let your thoughts settle. You let clarity form naturally. You begin to trust the process rather than forcing it. This discipline not only strengthens your decision-making, but also elevates your sense of self-control. People respect those who do not panic under pressure, who don't allow emotions to cloud judgment, and who can maintain composure even when circumstances become overwhelming. As you practice silence, you start tuning into your inner voice more than the noise around you. You begin to recognize what truly aligns with your values. You learn to differentiate between what deserves your energy and what simply distracts you. This internal alignment becomes a powerful guide. It keeps you focused, it keeps you intentional, and people admire those who live in alignment with their principles because it shows integrity, commitment, and authenticity. Silence also teaches you how to protect your peace. Not every argument deserves a response. Not every criticism requires a reaction. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. When you choose silence, you protect your emotional energy from being drained by things that don't contribute to your growth. This ability to protect your peace is a sign of maturity, and maturity is one of the most respected traits a person can develop. People begin to notice that you don't get dragged into negativity. They see that you rise above conflict without becoming passive. You simply choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and understanding over impulsiveness. Over time, silence strengthens your relationships. When you listen without interrupting, when you observe without judging, when you give others space to express themselves fully, you show them a kind of respect that they don't often receive. People remember the ones who make them feel genuinely heard. They trust those who don't turn conversations into contests. They value those who create space for understanding rather than noise. Your silence becomes a gift, one that strengthens bonds, builds trust, and deepens connections. Silence also gives you the emotional room to grow. When you're not constantly speaking, reacting, or defending yourself, you create space for self-awareness to develop. You start recognizing your own patterns. You understand your strengths and confront your weaknesses. You gain clarity about your goals and the steps needed to reach them. This growth becomes visible in the way you carry yourself, in the consistency of your actions, and in the calmness with which you face challenges. People respect growth not because it's loud, but because it's evident, and as silence becomes more natural to you, you realize that it doesn't diminish your voice, it amplifies it. When you speak less often, play WORDSREMARK, a BLE more RORM meaning. When you choose your moments thoughtfully, your message becomes more impactful. When you prioritize listening over talking, people lean in when you finally decide to share your thoughts. This is the kind of influence that doesn't need force, it doesn't need volume, it simply requires authenticity and intention. Slowly, you start to recognize that silence is a form of power, a power rooted in restraint, awareness, and self-respect. It allows you to lead without demanding authority. It allows you to inspire without forcing inspiration. It allows you to earn respect without ever having to ask for it, and through this quiet, steady strength, you discover that the most influential people aren't always the loudest. They are the ones who understand the value of silence, who move with intention, and who let their presence speak long before their words ever do.